Come on. It's like jump starting an old car. You're like,
I had that exact problem this morning. I had that exact problem this morning in my
Not with your Bronco.
The pilot, the 2004 Pilot.
Oh, okay.
It says it's cold. I'm tired. It's actually like in the 40s this morning in New Orleans.
Pilot's not a bad car. Why would it have
it's
trouble
good.
like that?
It was fine in the end.
Okay.
It was 80 degrees on Christmas in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, here we go. Coaching carousel in 3, 2, 1. The NFL has made a bunch of moves, and we are here to talk about it. It's a coaching carousel show on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom, starting with a hat tip to Vic Fangio. A hat tip to something that had gone Audible viral. Is that a thing, Bloom? Like Audible viral, right?
Viral, Cease. Don't get us demonetized.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Vic Fangio, how much do we miss you?
Every day.
That's right. As Vic Fangio now done
every day.
And done with the Denver Broncos as their head coach. You think every day is going anywhere?
No.
Au contraire, mon frere. And of course, Vic Fangio will be a defensive coordinator somewhere, somehow, but Denver had to move on. I don't want to get into when this decision was made, but I believe that it was propped up by reporters, because here's what reporters do, and God bless Adam Schefter, who's my mentor, and God bless Ian Rappaport, who was mistaken. I don't really know him. I can't say much about him. Matt Patricia mistook BK, our friend Brandon Cristal, for Ian Rappaport one time. He's like, Ian, what's up? And BK was like, yeah. He just like played along.
He's talking to me. Yeah.
Exactly. Matt Patricia likes me. Anyway, I don't think that's something you want. But anyway, getting off track, I think what had happened, Bloom, was that you had Fangio's agent telling reporters like Schefter, like Rappaport, oh, they don't want to fire him. Oh my God, they love him. Players love him. As soon as that came out, I thought a couple of things. One, I thought, well, that's got to be Broncos PR, right? That sounds like it's directly. Did it have Broncos letterhead on it? Sounded like it was directly from Patrick Smythe, who does a fantastic job, one of the best in the league. But I thought of it and I was like, that's horrible. Like, the players don't love him. There's a lot of players that actually just don't like him, period. But deciphering it further, because it's like, who does George Paton talk to? Nobody. He doesn't talk to Mike Kliss, doesn't talk to Troy Rank, doesn't talk to me. He talks to Nick Ferguson, my co-host. I'll leave that one alone. But like, so this news didn't come from George Paton. The whole, we really like him, we really don't want to get rid of him. Well, again, I will save when that decision was made for your imagination, Bloom. But just know the decision had to be made with Vic Fangio. Moving on. Oh, the defense. Like, yeah. The defense wasn't as great as people or Fangio wanted to promote it as. And it's not like guys like Justin Simmons and Shelby Harris are going to forget how to play football, right? Like, oh, my God, Vic Fangio's not here. And offensively, I mean, just garbage offense. Absolute trash offense for years. So, Broncos fans want an offensive-minded coach. That's why you see Nathaniel Hackett, perhaps tops of the list. Kellen Moore also on the list. There are 6 now people that have been sought for an interview. Let's see if I can get all 6 off the top of my head. I'll start with the hard one. Luke Getsy.
Yeah.
Luke Getsy, Packers quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator. That has a theme, Bloom. And then Nathaniel Hackett, of course, then Kellen Moore, then Dan Quinn, then Gerard Mayo, then Eric Bieniemy. I think I got them all. Yeah. So those are the 6 currently, and they can go up to 12. They will be thorough, according to George Paton. But the Broncos have to move in a different direction, likely with the new quarterback. And the how about this, Lassie Bark Bloom? My dream scenario is Aaron Rodgers and a Packers coach. Maybe it's Getsy now, maybe it's Nathaniel Hackett. But my dream is Aaron Rodgers in a Broncos uniform. Whether or not that happens, who in the hell knows? But their top target is probably Aaron Rodgers. That's not really Lassie Bark. I'm just telling you what I've heard. And we'll see. We'll see if they get a Rodgers-friendly coach or if they get someone like a Dan Quinn who, obviously has a lot of respect and defensive mind and all that. So let's start with, of course, a Broncos show, Bloom, and Vic Fangio is bye-bye.
Yeah, and you can say that he didn't ever get a quarterback. Maybe it's the Pat Shurmur hire. Whatever it was, he just wasn't responsive, and there wasn't a sense of urgency about the offense. And there are just some coaches that are destined to be coordinators. The skill set of a coordinator and the skill set of a head coach, not as much overlap as you would think. See some other names that have been thrown out there in addition to what you said. Brian Callahan, Byron Leftwich, you're going to hear that name a lot. Brian Dable, you're going to hear that name a lot. Aaron Glenn is coming up now. Kevin O'Connell, Jonathan Gannon, the Indy defensive coordinator. So, yeah, like you said, up to 12, they'll probably use all 12.
They should.
They should, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like interviewing the quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round, like using one of your 30 visits. Like, why not? Why not get to know the person? Whether or not you end up hiring them, it never hurts. And I get a feeling that George Payton is going to... You remember, Payton inherited Fangio, right? I mean, he didn't pick Fangio. So... I think that you get the feeling that Payton's going to start his way. But like you said, Cease, everything about this really revolves around Aaron Rodgers or the quarterback, as Vic Fangio pointed out. And what I get, Cease, from the Packers vibe out there is they all think this is over. That all that stuff from the summer's past us and everything's okay. I don't know. And then there's, of course, the Russell Wilson situation where everyone's saying the right things, which makes you feel even more that Russell Wilson could be out there. Or you get thrown to the Wolves and, I don't know, Jimmy Garoppolo or Matt Ryan. But it's a quarterback-driven league, and that's why we're still talking about quarterback, even though the opening is at head coach.
Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers may be their target. They might wind up with Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is. And by the way, don't feel sorry for me, Argentina. Don't cry for me, Argentina, because Vic Fangio tried to be made a sympathetic character. Like, oh my God, they just thought they didn't. Second easiest schedule in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the veteran quarterback that you wanted, obviously you never wanted Drew Lock in there. Like okay, so everything has to be perfect for Vic Fangio to be? No. It's Dick LeBeau, right? It's Dom Capers. It's Jim Haslett. It's Greg Williams. How many defensive guys do I got to go?
Or Cam Cameron. There have been some offensive examples too.
Yes,
and
sure.
Because you got the feeling, Cecil, as we had the show within the show of how's it going for Cecil Lammey covering the Broncos, that they never had organizational clarity. They never had alignment. They never had a clear answer of how we win football games other than hope the defense figures it out and pulls the offense to a win. And that's just not good enough.
That's not good enough. That's what they said in Minnesota, Bloom. You surprised they cleaned out everybody? Like Zim, okay, all right. You get Zim out, that's fine. But you're cleaning out the entire, as much as you possibly can. Like with Minnesota, I guess maybe there was part of me that was a little bit surprised. Mike Zimmer gone, that's not a surprise. But Rick Spielman's really good general manager, and he's tried quarterback different ways, right? And trading for Sam Bradford and getting Kirk Cousins and drafting Christian Ponder, drafting Teddy Bridgewater. So when Spielman was fired, I was like, okay, I guess I was surprised by that. How about you?
A little bit surprised. It was definitely in play when Charch was on the couch. He said Zimmer's out unequivocally, and the question is what's going to happen to Spielman.
Right.
Spielman's been with the team for 10 years. You can't necessarily pin the Kirk Cousins signing on him or even say that that's a downfall because at the time they had just made it to the NFC title game with Case Keenum. And the idea was, well, if we can just improve a quarterback, we have all the other pieces in place. Didn't quite work out that way. Spielman, we'll miss him for how well he played the draft. Just one of his greatest hits was trading down in the third round 3 times before taking Alexander Madison. That's clarity. When you know you can trade down 3 times and still get your guy. So nobody played the draft quite as well as Rick Spielman, or at least stepped up and played it the way we would play it. But at the same time, it seems like this blueprint with this coach ran its course, and the team decided, Ziggy Wolf, Mark Wolf, I guess running the team now, decided that let's reboot. Now, it's not going to be a total rebuild, but when you look at this team, Kirk Cousins has 1 more year left on his contract. I don't think you're going to see this team committing to Kirk Cousins. Perhaps Kirk Cousins could be a trade candidate. Danielle Hunter came back this year. They have Eric Kendricks. When you look at the cornerstones, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, they have some pieces, but it's really going to be up to the new GM. And here's the good thing, Cecil. We're going to contrast our NFC North teams because Wilf has already said, you notice we had how many names for Denver? How many names are there for Minnesota right now?
I haven't seen a one.
None.
Yeah,
but you know why? Because they're going to hire a GM first. Oh, mind-blowing, right? You hire your GM so that your GM helps pick the head coach.
Doesn't inherit Vic Fangio.
Right. Well, and people have pointed out that San Francisco hired Kyle Shanahan and then hired John Lynch. Well, that just shows you who's in charge, okay? Detroit hired Dan Campbell and then hired their GM. Okay, that might be a different structure. We're going to talk about what else is going on. But that's why there's not much to talk about here, Cease, except I think the intriguing offseason question here is what happened to Kirk Cousins? Because no longer is Kyle Shanahan his groom in waiting, right? We can put that aside. They got Trey Lance now. So that's not happening.
His guy.
Yeah, so we'll see. I certainly think that it's possible he could get traded this offseason, and I think it's highly likely this is his last season for the Vikings. And they might say, don't call it a rebuild, but certainly the new GM is going to have a different vision for the team than Spielman and Zimmer did.
Don't call it a comeback. And I don't think they can get rid of Cousins, dude. Like, we've talked about it before briefly, but what is that? 40-some million, 45 million cap hit? And 45 million in dead money.
Yeah.
On a 1-year deal. Who in the blank is going to trade for that? Sorry, Joe. Like, seriously. So I think that you may not be stuck with a head coach if you're the new GM, but I think you're stuck with this quarterback for one more year.
Yeah. And by the way, on the GM front, real quick,
yes.
Since there's no names out there, we have the names for other GM openings. I'm going to throw my 3 favorites out there. There's going to be a lot
Louis
of Pittsburgh.
Riddick.
Yeah, right. A lot of Pittsburgh connections here, Cease. Louis Riddick, right? Louis Riddick. Kevin Colbert is stepping down, and I don't know if that means Omar Khan, New Orleans native, Tulane graduate. Omar Khan is going to be promoted, but if not, he would be one. And Cease, let's take a moment just to say someone should hire Rick Smith.
One of the best men, like just guys, in addition to everything he knows about football and the eye for talent that he has, the fact that Rick Smith doesn't have a job is pathetic.
Yeah, it's a travesty.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. So, I love that name.
Some names. So Minnesota, if you hear one of those 3 names, you should be happy.
You should be happy, Minnesota fans. If you're a Bears fan, what do you think? Hey, everybody. The Chicago Bears, they go ahead and clean house. Now, you already have people kind of lining up, but Matt Nagy gone. Was he gone like in Thanksgiving? And they just kept him around for a month because the Bears have never fired a coach.
Exactly.
Then why is that a thing? Is there some sort of hat I can buy? Is there like a Sports Illustrated subscription I can get? It comes with your haven't fired a coach in the regular season hat. Like, seriously, there's T-shirt. People love T-shirts, Bloom. Which, by the way, footballguys.com/shop. But anyway, I hope it's /shop. Matt Nagy fired. General manager Ryan Pace fired as well for the Chicago Bears. Okay, find someone that can work with Justin Fields, please. Now, Leslie Frazier, Bills DC, is reportedly been requested to interview. Todd Bowles, DC for Tampa Bay, has been sought for an interview. Colts DC, name what all these have in common. Eberflus has been requested, and Brian Flores, speaking of defense, for the Bears has been requested. Flores should be at the top of everybody's list. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about Miami next. But already you have 4 candidates lined up for interviews, all defensive minds for the Bears.
Yeah, and other names tossed out there for the head coach job, Byron Leftwich, Doug Peterson. Okay, again, so let's talk some organizational structure, organizational chart stuff here, okay? And I'm sorry, Bears fans. And Bears fans know all this stuff all too well. But for the rest of y'all out there, a little picture into this. You have team president Ted Phillips, okay? He is going to negotiate the contract of the new GM and head coach and it was apparently his idea, even though the new GM is going to report to George McCaskey, team president. George McCaskey had a press conference that really is not going to make you feel good as a Bears fan at the end of the season, right? What was it, last year? They waited until like Wednesday to have a press conference to say, yeah, we're keeping everybody. This time around, no, they're not keeping everybody. George McCaskey. First of all, he says, they asked him about Justin Fields. He says, I'm a fan, not a football evaluator. Well, the football guy at the head of the organization reports to you. Fan in chief. So the top of the food chain is going to be the GM, right? The GM is not going to report to anybody who's going to step in and say, don't draft Mitchell Trubisky or something like that. Right? This is kind of like the problem. Can you get John Fox? Can we do an interview with John Fox about Bears dysfunction? I bet he would be happy to talk about it, right?
I bet he would be.
So now you have they're and I get it. Okay, Brian Flores, great. They got the interview lined up, and that should show you Miami messed up. By the way, I'm hearing some pushback from people, and so I'm just going to go there, okay? Because it's off season. We can talk. It's off season for fantasy football, so we can really just talk about football the way we want to. I know Adam Gase got hired right away. He was a hot name after Miami fired him. Blah blah blah. Brian Flores is a minority head coach. The history of the NFL is that minority head coaches rarely get second chances. True?
True.
So if he's a hot name right away, now even a bad organization like the Bears can see this was a mistake. We'll talk about Miami a little bit more. But if you are bringing in a GM who is the top of the food chain, and he's inheriting a Vic Fangio as soon as he steps into the job, right? I mean, if the GM is the final word on football decisions in your organization, then how can you be hiring a head coach or even interviewing head coaches without your eventual GM in the room? How does that work? Especially whenever, again, the GM's going to report to, I'm just a fan, George McCaskey. I'm going to mention a few other things. McCaskey's going to bring in Bill Polian. So here's the other side. I'm just a fan, so I need to bring in Bill Polian to help me, right? Okay. They do have...
So tell me which quarterback should be wide receivers?
He said he's sorry. He said he messed up, okay? We all make mistakes. Good one, though. Good pull. I'll say something positive here. They do have the head of, I think, like the diversity position in their organization on the search committee for GM. They're going to have some good names there. But this was a bad press conference. They talked about Jeff Dickerson. Oh God, terrible. We've lost too many people. And then in one of the worst transitions, so you think you make some bad transitions in your career? In one of the worst transitions, he went right from Parker Dickerson, Jeff Dickerson's son, who's now an orphan, to Matt Nagy's son because they chanted "Fire Nagy" at his high school playoff game.
Oh my God.
Then Olin Kreutz. See, so if you say, who's held in higher esteem in Bears Nation than Olin Kreutz? Is there many other than
Walter Payton?
Mike Ditka,
Yeah, Walter Payton.
Olin Kreutz came out and said, in 2018, the Bears tried to hire me to coach the offensive line, have a role coaching the offensive line for $15 an hour. And McCaskey basically implied during the press conference that Kreutz was lying. So much so that Harry Hiestand, I think is his last name, the Notre Dame / the Bears came out and said, basically defended Kreutz's honor because McCaskey was trying to imply like, oh, Olin knows what happened. You're implicating a man's reputation, a man who is held as high esteem as anybody in this fan base. Because, well, you offered him $15 an hour to help the team coach the offensive line. It was not a good press conference. So you mentioned Eberflus. Let's get to the football stuff here. There's Ed Dodds, I think is his name, from Colts, who said that he was going to come back to the Colts last year because there was unfinished business. It's still unfinished. Maybe you have a Colts combo here. I'm just saying, Cease. Sorry, Colts fans. I'm not trying to low blow you here. They've looked at Morocco Brown, another name from Indianapolis. So you got kind of the Colts. I guess it's an easy drive from Indianapolis to Chicago. A couple of guys from Cleveland too. Easy drive from Cleveland to Chicago. Glenn Cook, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. These are names that are being tossed out as potential GMs. But it does seem like they're a little more eager to do that head coach search first. And just no reassurance coming out of Chicago right now. You do have Louis Riddick saying that the Bears GM job, or maybe the head coach job. I'm saying GM job because that's Freudian. He's saying the head coach job should be number one because of Justin Fields. Because, by the way, that was the question, Cease. They asked McCaskey, what do you think of how Justin Fields played? Oh, I'm a fan. I'm not a football evaluator. I'm just the person that the football person in charge of our organization reports to, but I'm not a football evaluator. So I'm sorry, Bears fans.
I'm sorry as well. Jim Harbaugh, mentioned by our man Brian in the chat room. Anything there? And we know Stephen Ross, since we're going to talk about Miami in a little bit. Stephen Ross already said he's not going to go for Harbaugh, although he wanted him so bad years ago. Michigan man. Harbaugh is an interesting college name who, I see the attraction of everyone going to college, but I also see the attraction of Harbaugh, who's done pretty much what he can do. I mean, getting Michigan into the college football playoff, I think that's
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Now all those other teams with 19 5-star recruits can feel like maybe they could knock off Alabama. Wait, there's only one other team. Harbaugh, I mean, he fits the mold of an imperial head coach, right? A coach that is everyone's going to report to him and the organization's going to revolve around him. But you really, the more interesting angle on Harbaugh is this idea that, because Stephen Ross, what's the story? Sees there's a building with his name on it at the University of Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. But for Ross to get out ahead of it that quickly, I guess we should believe what he says, even though it was definitely the strangest move of Black Monday to see the Miami's going to have a new head coach.
Yeah, strangest move in the fact that they made that run, but this tells you there's more behind the scenes with Miami. So let's jump in. Brian Flores gone as their head coach. Stephen Ross saying no Jim Harbaugh. Rumblings from Mike Florio, take it for however you will, about, Ross wanted Joe Burrow and all these sorts of things. And the Tua connection, and from what Adam has said, there was a disconnect between quarterback and head coach and a disconnect between ownership and head coach. So when you have that, regardless of how good you are at your job, when it gets personal, people at the top will make decisions based on emotion. And that's what it seems like Stephen Ross did here. Not using intelligence to make this decision, but just using emotion of we didn't make the playoffs, and I don't like him, and he doesn't like Tua, or whatever, and then firing Brian Flores, who now becomes the top candidate, honestly, for anybody.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, it's good that what he's accomplished is not gone unnoticed. And that's one of the funny notes out of this whole thing, right? I can't remember who it is, Cease, that said, I didn't realize Brian Flores had so many fans. Cease, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. I'm curious if you can. What was the last head coach firing that was this widely criticized?
Can't think of. Usually they're they're criticized for why'd you wait so long?
Why'd you take so long? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have these things start to come out, right? Oh, he's not that good with people. A lot of people come out and said, well, he's a little blunt, but he's good. He's fine with people. You have this stuff. He didn't tank for Burrow.
You're trying to establish a culture.
So I think, Cease, that we can actually use the NFL communities, and it's not just all of us Twitter yappers. A lot of NFL people saying, wow, this was shocking. And what do they really mean when they say this was shocking or I was surprised? They're saying this was a bad move.
They shouldn't have done it.
They shouldn't have done it. Yeah, they shouldn't have done it. All we really have here is, and by the way, here's another thing, right? What did Rappaport Brandon Cristal came out and said, I'm never going to forget that now. Hey, I'm never going to forget that, but one time I mistook Jason Cole for Adam Kaplan, or maybe it was Adam Kaplan for Jason Cole. I can't even remember.
It was Jason. You called him Adam Kaplan.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've all
Close
been
enough.
Close enough. Brian Dable's name has come up here. But another thing, Ian Rappaport, they came right out and said, oh, Flores was the driving force behind trying to get Deshaun Watson, right? You saw that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mike Sando, remember Mike Sando?
He's the greatest. He's one of the best.
He says ownership was pushing for Watson. So we don't even have any straight answers on any of this stuff, which again, I think just makes it stink of bad ownership matters, right? A bad move, bad ownership. We're talking about McCaskey in the Bears. I know someone said in the chat room, the fish rots from the head first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. By the way, always with whatever information, reminds me of old George Carlin thing, where he's like, I don't believe anything that comes out news-wise. Whenever you hear this news, like the Rappaport thing compared to other reports, just know, is it coming from an agent?
Right.
Or is it coming from the player? Like, if you can decipher that, or if you know, then you know how to take that news and information. Like agent, I almost did a rant on this on my show, Nick and Cecil, Lammey, on the Fan, about how agent-fed information almost runs this league.
Yeah.
It's very, and hell, it's their job, right? I'm not even mad at agents, but I know you've had agents. I've had agents that come up to me and be like, thanks for talking good about my guy. I'm like, well, I like him. I've also had agents, just like you've had agents, that come up to you and say, can you talk good about my guy? And I'm like, no.
See, so we had agents come up to us and ask us to help them poach a player from another agent.
Yes. So agents are doing their job. Now it's their job. You might think, wow, that's pretty scummy. It's their job, right? That's their job to shovel that. Shut your mouth. Oh, I can't say that. Demonetized.
Shaving cream.
Shaving cream. Right. Okay. I can't let the SH go too long.
Right.
Else YouTube's like, yep, you ain't got any money. Shut it down.
Cue the Chuck D on the monetization of the Audible today.
But I would say, like, agent-fed information, Bloom, it's something to just be mindful of.
I'll add this because this is the kind of analysis that comes up a lot this year and at this time of year, and people definitely should heed it. And I think the fact that people are even digging these kinds of things up, right? It's like, oh, this agent is the agent for the quarterback of this team, and he's the agent for this head coaching candidate.
Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur had the same agent. They didn't know each other. He hired him because they had the same agent. That's stupid.
So when people are starting to give you that kind of analysis, number one, it's interesting just to take these threads and follow them. Just like when we say, oh, the position coach for a team coached a player that's a draft prospect when they end up getting drafted. We try to figure out the connections. Oftentimes when we're trying to decipher these moves, it is the agents absolutely driving it. And the agents also have their clout and they know how to make their agents. See, there's a list. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to end up on the list. There are agents that you have one chance. If you cross that agent, and it doesn't even have to really cross them, just make them unhappy. One time, slam, you're done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just think about it. Speaking of thinking about it, Bloom, let's talk about the teams that we already know need head coaches like Jacksonville and the Raiders. Yeah. And what? Nathaniel Hackett said no to Jacksonville? Sorry. At least Trevor Lawrence did. He didn't suck in the final game, Bloom. He actually threw a touchdown. And somebody in the chat room was like, Steelers fans need to kiss the feet of Jack. Sure. I'll do it. Yeah. Fine. Yeah, sure. Now I'm finally forgiving him for that David Garrard game when we were in Vegas. And
I was going to streak down the Strip.
I know.
Now I said, I'm going to streak down Bourbon Street if the Steelers beat the Chiefs. Okay.
Ooh.
They're not going to being the Chiefs.
Okay.
Let me revise that. I won't streak down. I will streak down Bourbon Street in a G-string and a mask.
Okay. All right. Just as long as you live stream it.
Oh, I'll have the camera.
Wear the GoPro.
We'll do two angles.
Wearing a mask and a G-string on Bourbon Street, you probably see that a lot.
I'll fit right in. Yeah.
Yeah. You'll be like, what's that guy doing? Oh, football. Who cares? Yeah. Saints suck. Anyway, Jacksonville and the Raiders. And if you're the Raiders, why Why beep would you move on
You're
from
right.
Rich Bisaccia?
That's a
Like,
good
why
question.
would you do that?
It's a good question. And I don't know that they're going to, right? I mean, he could have the interim removed from his title. So, Jacksonville, real quick. What's the problem here? Trent Baalke staying on. Wasn't he supposed to be the GM because of his relationship with Urban Meyer? Wasn't that like part of like a package deal? So again, what do we see here? See dysfunction or things that don't make sense.
And I like Shad Khan. I don't want him to have a terrible team, and he does because he makes terrible decisions.
Yeah, it's bad. So from what I understand, the guy here is Bill O'Brien. It's Bill O'Brien, maybe Doug Peterson.
Oh God, Doug
Because-
Peterson would be better.
Well, here's the question, Cease. Who will take a head coaching job knowing that they are going to be reporting to Trent Baalke? It's the Game of Thrones stuff. The fact that Trent Baalke is still there tells you what's going on with this organization at this point. And that makes it somewhat unattractive. But from the Trevor Lawrence point of view, like you said, Hackett was a name, Kellen Moore is a name. Darrell Bevell is even going to get an interview, maybe to drop the interim from his head coach title. So there's that. So you want to see an offensive-minded head coach here. But again, the GM issue is a thorny one. And all those names we hear listed off for Denver, for instance. Yeah, those guys want to go and work with George Payton. Who wants to work with Trent Baalke?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. And the Raiders, they're not going to get rid of Bisaccia, right?
I
mean,
hope
they shouldn't.
not. And this is
I
like,
hope
well,
not,
it could be a Brian Flores thing where if they do, then he's the next John Harbaugh. You know, it's so clear the respect that he has in that building from those players. So we'll see. Hopefully, Mark Davis does the right thing. How many times have we said that Mark Davis did the right thing?
Hey, not often. Two teams that we're hearing rumblings about. Bloom, let's go to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
And Matt Rhule, basically, what is the rumble? He's got to get a rock star at OC. Okay.
Pep Hamilton.
And then fire the rest of his staff. Like, this is clearly taking out Matt Rhule at the knees. So why would you keep Matt Rhule? Oh, it's Carolina. Okay.
Yeah. We got a Baalke Bartakamus mentioned in the chat room, by the way.
I love that. Every day. What a country, right? Wasn't that his thing?
Oh, we may be crossing Yakov Smirnoff from our
No, that was Yakov Smirnoff.
Our unspecified. I don't remember. I just remember it was Perfect Strangers.
Perfect
and I remember
Strangers,
really when I think of Baalke Bartakamus, I think of the
Don't
actor,
be ridiculous.
Don't be ridiculous. Bronson Pinchot, his excellent role in True Romance. I remember him more from True Romance than I do from Perfect Strangers. We're talking about this because Carolina is a shaving cream show. It is bad. It is bad.
It's bad.
Matt Rhule looks miserable. Matt Rhule does not look happy to be an NFL head coach right now. I see. The only way I can decipher this one from the outside is David Tepper is learning that multiplying money out in our economy is a lot easier than running an NFL organization, getting good people and putting the people in place to make good decisions, because this is not how you do it. You don't dictate. Isn't it funny how these things, time is a flat circle, right? Why didn't Matt Rhule take the Jets job? Because they were going to dictate to him who some of his assistant coaches would be, right? You heard this, Cease?
Yeah.
What's happening in Carolina now? They're going to dictate to him who his assistant coach is going to be. They fired the offensive coordinator. They fired the special teams coordinator. They fired the defensive line coach, and they fired the offensive line coach. And from all of the items, carefully worded items coming out, he's not going to have. He has a list that's being put together for him, right? That doesn't sound like an NFL organization that is healthy, that is being run in a nice, functional way. Pep Hamilton is a good name to toss out there, but that's a name that's associated with Carolina. This is another team whose quarterback going to be. This just feels like next year we're going to be talking about. See, get all the takes ready for the Coaching Carousel show next year for Matt Rhule being fired.
Yeah, during the year, can we do that? By the way, who's the quarterback going to be? Bloom. They re-up PJ Walker. So,
man,
hey. There you go. Speaking of cheap, the Giants.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, full disclosure, I just asked Stink, Mark Schlereth. I was like, they're going to fire Joe Judge. He's like, no. Well, they haven't, and it doesn't seem like
there are meetings happening.
There's meetings happening, though. And
he's got a plan.
There's a plan in place not to stink, I guess. Right. And Dave Gettleman, their GM, just flat out retires. You can't fire me because I'm going to retire. So will there be changes for the Giants after these meetings?
Yeah, because one of the things we hear, and this is great. I mean, this actually fits right in American culture, American like executive level culture. Joe Judge is like, actually, I want to have a say in the GM hire too. I don't know what's actually going on. I just know that this is one. Let's get our 2023 takes about Joe Judge being fired ready, because everybody can see it except the people calling the shots. This is very reminiscent of the Bears at the end of the year last year, except the Giants didn't even make the playoffs. And the Giants also have the Bears' first-round pick, so there's some parallels here. Here's some names that have been tossed out. And I mean, at least there's some sensibility here because of the organizations, right? Adrian Wilson, remember him? He's got a high position in Arizona. His name's being tossed out there. Ryan Poles, name we already familiar from the GM cycles with Kansas City. Monty Austinfort from Tennessee. John Robinson's done a good job there. Joe Schoen from Buffalo. And then Adam Peters, Ran Carthon from San Francisco. So these are the names. But again, you're inheriting Vic Fangio. You're inheriting Joe Judge. You may only get one chance to be a GM. How attractive is that job knowing that? So maybe we will hear something. One other thing I want to mention before we put a lid on this, and we will, to be continued, right, Cecil? We will do our second part of the Coaching Carousel show once the carousel stops, and you see who got to sit on the zebra, and who got to sit on the lion, and who got to sit on the ostrich. Which animal would you usually pick out if it was one of the zoo ones? You ever see one of the zoo carousels?
I was, you really want an on the couch moment. Okay, here we go. I was never allowed to ride a carousel. I've never ridden a carousel in my entire life because we would see them at the rodeos or the state fairs or whatever. And I'd be like, Daddy, let me ride the carousel. And Dad would be like, nope, we got horses at home. You don't need to ride that. So I've never, ever ridden a carousel. I'll probably have a heart attack if I ever did, just because I'd be so overjoyed.
You'll start crying. You'll cry. Yeah.
Childlike joy. You know what I mean? To be like, I'm finally doing it. I'm finally riding the carousel. Then I'm coming, Elizabeth.
Well, I have an idea of how we can. Riding a carousel should be part of an experience that you and I will eventually have together. So I want to bring up one more thing before, again, to be continued. And by the way, for those of you that were in the chat room and showed up and you're with us live and expressing excitement and enjoyment that we're doing a show today, thank you, folks. Thank you, really. I say it, but I can't ever say it enough. We feel the love, and we need the love. We all need the love, and we love you. And we want to come up with excuses to be part of each other's lives, even while fantasy football is over. But we also don't want to overwork Cecil. So we'll be sprinkling some things in as we get closer and closer. We'll see what happens with Houston and David Culley. There was some talk that he wouldn't be retained. I don't know that you could have asked him to do more than he did with the Texans, but there's some talk that Nick Caserio might want to bring in Patriots alum. So we'll see what happens there. Otherwise, Cease, I think that there's not any other things lingering that we're monitoring. We're just going to be watching who gets lined up to interview in Denver and elsewhere and seeing how this all shakes out.
And seeing how the Broncos can get a Packers coach so they can get Aaron Rodgers. Anyway. People wanted us to talk about the Chargers-Raiders game. And then the Steelers, like, there's so much.
I bloomed it.
We don't do a recap show on week 19 or whatever. Blank. I already dropped.
See, Vegas did a great job with this one. I know all season. I was talking about you. Was your nose itching or something?
The Vegas thing, yeah.
As Kate and I, so we'll tell us, people wanted that live audio. I think Zach Law, I love you, Zach Law, if you're listening, man. He wanted the live audio whenever Latavius Murray ran in that touchdown. And so I'll do a little, because this is all about relating, right? I'm going to be honest. Since when was the last year that we really cared about the Steelers because we thought they had potential? 2018, the year the Jags beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah, that'd be it.
So since then, like, I care about my team. It's almost like it's one of those things that's like from a comic book or some sort of sci-fi story where there's something implanted in us that it sometimes can put out the call, and whether you want to hear the call or not, when you hear it, you report to it.
Yes.
And all season with the Steelers, this was a season that shouldn't have even happened. It should have been, let's see what we have in house at quarterback.
It should have been Mason Rudolph 3-15 record or whatever. Don't make me do math.
So, but sure enough, here I am, Cease, as Jacksonville continues to open up their lead on Indy. Sweaty palms. Sweaty palms.
I said I wouldn't let him hurt me.
Right. Every time I get out. I think I got out. They pulled me back in.
Draw me back in.
I can't quote anything correctly at this point with my Swiss cheese brain. Sweaty palms. Kate and I are watching the game, and I said, "Feel my hand," and she goes, "Whoa!" I said, "Yeah, I can't help it. I can't help it. I can't help it." The game goes to overtime. Chris Boswell makes the kick, and it was also known during that game that if the Steelers and Ravens tied, they would both be going home, as it should be. Cecil, what do you think about ties? How do you feel about ties?
I feel differently now.
Oh, well, hold on. I want to hear this.
Well, on the Chargers-Raiders game, you're just like, I'm kind of rooting for the tie. This is just because we've never seen this.
Right. It was a truly unique situation. And Cecil, I also want to say that, like I said, I was mentioning you a lot on Sunday because you've hinted that maybe outcomes of games are potentially... What can we use as a tactful word here, Cease? I don't know. Not random.
A propellant?
Yeah.
A propellant for certain things happen. Listen, the Steelers fans going to bet. And YouTube can't demonetize me for this. Right. They already demonetized me for the shut your mouth. But anyway, like, do Steelers fans like to bet or do Colts fans?
Right.
They've got numbers on all this. How much action do the Colts games get? Really? Honestly.
Yeah.
How much action do the Steelers games get? I bet it's a lot more.
Right. So first of all, I want to say, so you watch the Steelers, and it's funny too because there's a long conversation here about Ben Roethlisberger and the emotional relationship or lack of emotional relationship with Ben Roethlisberger. But I think after everybody watched him on Monday night, even again, my wife Kate saying like, I feel good for him when he led the drive to take the lead and then the drive in overtime. And he did. He led the drive. It was very Peyton Manning Broncos Super Bowl year-esque, where it's like, I have this much football left in me and I can use it to win this game for us. It was great. In some ways, it was fitting. It was something that whatever happens against the Chiefs, they're going to lose badly. We'll remember this Ravens game instead. I do want to say as an aside, we watched earlier in the day, before the Chargers-Raiders game, an incredible drama in the Rams-49ers game. Mm-hmm. And if you know Saints history, you know that the Rams are one of the hated teams. The NFC title game, the non-call and the pass interference, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So having to root for the Rams was very strange. And we could do a whole recap on this. The Rams were up 24-17. They had 3rd and 7. The 49ers had one timeout left. There was about 1:40 left, and they called a run. And my wife Kate, who is a
offensive
Saints
genius.
Fan, yeah, Sean McVay doesn't even trust the quarterback that he was so excited to get to convert a 3rd and 7 to win the division and get the number 2 seed. And the number 2 seed could be the difference. It's the difference between hosting a second round, hosting a divisional round game and not hosting it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's meaningful. Right. The difference between the number 2 and number 4 seed and that loss is meaningful and could change the Rams' fate because now they have to play the Cardinals instead of playing the Eagles. That's a little bit of a difference in quality of teams. He calls a run and they have to punt. So, okay, they use their last time out. And, of course, I'm blooming it all over the place on Sunday. I turn to Kate and I say, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. They're fine. Saints are going to the playoffs. It wasn't fine. They drove down the field with like 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel Lions fans, we'll add it to this. Now we know, like, for all we thought you were lucky to have Matthew Stafford, now at this point we're like, having to believe in Matthew Stafford, it's painful. It's painful.
Ask you saw that final throw to Odell on the sidelines. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was terrible. So fast forward to Raiders Chargers, and I think it was Cameron Hayward said, "Oh, I want to see everyone turn into a mathematician." Again, Cease, I'm blooming it all over the place, right? The score turns 26-14. There ain't many ways to score 12 points in a half of football, right? 4 field goals. Chargers aren't going to get 4 field goals. But Brandon Staley's not going to settle for field goals when it's 26-14. This is feeling good. I think I went and watched something else, right, for a little bit. because this was a really intense emotionally. I think people who had no rooting interest in these games at all were caught up in the emotional intensity of Week 18. So after all the complaining about 17 games and 18 weeks, etc., Week 18 gave us some stuff we'll never forget, even if you didn't care about any of the teams involved. 26-14, I turn to Kate and I say, we're good. 12-point second half lead. Then they kick a field goal to make it 29-14. Then Justin Herbert converts 17 fourth downs. By this point, I'm watching everything, of course, and I'm losing it. We were getting sucked into this reality. Almost like the tie seemed inevitable. We can talk about the timeout. We can talk about Justin Herbert on the sideline saying, I never wanted a tie so badly in my life.
Right. And then Roger Goodell hits the Buffalo Wild Wings emergency button.
Right. But it really felt like that in the sense that you truly could have never come up with a script like this and had it play out that way.
No, we all joked about it before the game. Like, wouldn't it be funny if they get tied? Woo, tie, ha, 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 joke. And then it could have happened.
It should have happened.
It should have happened.
And then Daniel Carlson, I know Steelers fans are donating to Carlson's favorite charity. And then for the Raiders, it's meaningful. Like if, say, the Raiders and Patriots both pull off some upsets, then the Raiders could host the AFC title game. And the Raiders also get to play the Bengals instead of playing the Bills. I don't know how much that matters. But my point is simply that there was still something on the line. But hey, for those, wherever they are, Vegas or elsewhere, writing the scripts of these games, kudos. That was fun. That was exciting. Write more like that.
Just don't tell us.
There's no Santa Claus?
There totally is for those listening at home. Anyway, it's the spirit of Saint Nick.
Yeah.
Saint Nick Ferguson, Cecil. Anyway, let's wrap up this show. Be back on Thursday morning with our preview show of Wild Card Weekend. And we'll have a little Steelers debate then, Bloom. We'll see how much they lose by. But either way, I did look at parlay of just picking all the favorites. It's actually not that much. I think this is going to be a chalky
Cardinals. Pick the Cardinals.
I did, and that didn't change it that much. I did. I picked all the favorites, and I picked the Cardinals, and then I picked all the favorites. I picked the Steelers. That changed it quite a bit. But there's a reason why. Anyway, they're influencing us. We influence you to do the YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Bloom, I think we are 72 subscribers away from 15,000.
Ooh.
So, again, you want us to talk a little more about more than...
You know what's going to put us over 15,000?
What's that?
Me in a G-string and a mask on Bourbon Street.
Yes.
Come on, Roethlisberger, do it.
Make sure there's some Black-Eyed Joe mixed in, right?
Oh, like, yeah, I'll put them over. They'll be my pasties. Those will be my pasties.
Oh, I got stories about pasties. Anyway, stories about stories. It's the Audible. It's footballguys.com. He's Sigmund Bloom. I'm Cecil Lammey. We are the Audible. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, everyone. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty. Oh, wait. Now with more of this.